It's like 9 o'clock at night, and I'm filming myself in my car. That's normal, right? Just kidding. Oh, there's a car coming. Hey, chilling in my car alone. Late at night. They're passing very slowly. Who the heck is that? That was whack. Anyway, I have a lot of time on my hands, so I figured, hey, might as well. Don't mind the fact that I looked like complete trash yesterday when I filmed all of that. But recently I've been seeing a lot of videos about people's personal experiences with depression, anxiety, other mental disorders, suicide, or self-harm, and all that kind of stuff, which I'm all in support of. I think raising awareness about mental health is super important. So I've been seeing a lot of I don't know what the word is, like 13 Reasons Why, where, it kind of makes suicide look like a fantasy, or like you're gonna get all this attention, or I don't know, it just kind of makes it seem like a good option. And personally, I don't think suicide is ever the right option, which is why I want to put out this video to help people realize that they do have a purpose and that everything won't always be okay, but that you can survive. No, this isn't my survival story, but what I want to talk about is how to make yourself okay. I think in 7th grade, I went through the phase of convincing myself that I was depressed. Convinced myself that I had nobody, that I was alone, that I should be depressed, and that's the only way I could get attention. Junior year, which was last year, I ended up being in a relationship with a boy who did not treat me like a girl should be treated. And after I broke up with him and realized that he's not what I needed, my self-confidence was shattered, and I didn't know how to collect the pieces of myself. So junior year kicked off. I had a full schedule, not a lot of friends. My sister had left for college, and just kind of a lot of things were piling on me, and it was not an easy year. I started just kind of not being myself. I was always annoyed, I was sleeping way too much, and it got to the point where my dad had to sit me down. He took me out to breakfast, which is not something he would normally do, especially after a business trip that he came home from. And he sat me down and he said, "Can I ask you a personal question?" I was like, oh, here we go, he knows. And he was like, "Do you think you're depressed?" And I looked down at my food, and I looked up at my dad, and I said, I don't know. Probably, but I don't know. And he said, okay, well, have you ever thought about suicide? And if you have, how often? And again, I looked down at my food, and I tried covering my face up, and I looked back up at him, I said, I have a lot, which was kind of scary because normally kids don't tell their parents that they're suicidal. But he said, okay, based off of that, can we get you some help? And I was like, I don't want a therapist, I don't want to see anybody, I don't need help, because all they're going to do is tell me that nothing's wrong. So it took me a few months, actually probably like 3 months, so it was the entire semester, second semester, I hadn't gotten any help. So I was still suffering with the same thing. My parents thought that I was getting better, but I wasn't, and they were trying to put me on natural supplements that I never actually took. And then finally I started seeing my therapist, who has helped me become aware of thought processes that I have that aren't normal to everybody else. And she helped me recognize that, yeah, sure, I'm depressed and I sleep too much, and I feel sad for no reason, and I feel nothing, and I feel way too intense emotion, but I also suffer from a lot of anxiety. So, one thing that I think is kind of a stereotype is that you can't be depressed if you have a good life, which I can testify that that is false. My family, my parents love each other. My parents are still together. They're perfect for each other. They're so great to me, and they've given me no reason whatsoever to be depressed. I love my siblings and my brother-in-law. I go to church. I love my church and I love my faith, and I feel like I have a very good relationship with God and with Jesus Christ. And so, based off of that, people would be like, oh, you have no reason to be depressed. You're not really depressed. It's not a choice. And a lot of people say it is, and I think you can do a lot of things to put yourself in that kind of state of mind and make it easier for yourself to have those feelings and feel bad for yourself and pity yourself, and you won't really be able to get yourself out of that pit hole of despair. However, you don't need a reason to be depressed. It is literally a chemical imbalance in your head. And if you do have a reason to be depressed, then sometimes that causes it. My mom had a very hard home life growing up, and she's not naturally a depressed kind of person. But obviously she kind of developed those tendencies throughout her life because of the circumstances that she was in. So, whether you do or you don't have a reason, doesn't matter. One way that I have found gets me out of that kind of rut if I'm feeling bad about myself, just being reminded that there's an entire world out there that you haven't seen, that you haven't experienced. There are so many people within like a 5-mile radius that you haven't met. And you don't know their story. They don't know your story. And I always tell one of my friends who kind of suffers with the same thing that I do, I tell him all the time that somebody needs him, that somebody needs you. And even if you feel like the most worthless piece of that, somebody will find you not worthless, whether it be for 5 minutes or 500 years. You just don't know, because there could be somebody exactly like you suffering from the exact same thing. Well, not exact. Somebody a lot like you, suffering from a lot of the same thing, who needs your story and your light and your personality, because everybody is so different and everybody has a light in them. And sometimes, I know this sounds so cheesy, it is the hardest thing to feel. I've been there, where you sink to the ground in tears because you feel absolutely worthless and you feel like your life is going nowhere, and you think, why do I have to exist? Why can't I just be gone? I get that, and so do so many other people. But just for 5 seconds, stop and think about what you could do for somebody else, whether it be in Africa, whether it be in America, Canada, Mexico, England, anywhere. You never know. Tomorrow you could be handed a plane ticket to somewhere awesome, anywhere else but where you are, and you could go and change your own life and so many more. In conclusion, I just want to say that having a mental disorder doesn't make you any less special or more special. It's just like having problems with your thyroid. People can take medication for that and it might help them, and other people, medication doesn't work. And, some people are like, oh yeah, I have thyroid problems, but it's okay. And some people are like, oh, I have mental problems, but it's okay. And that's how it should be, Everybody has their own struggles,
but you can get through them, and there is somebody, many people, that need you here, and suicide is never the option, and neither is harming yourself. And in case nobody has told you, you are loved, you are worth it. The world needs you. That's all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I'm always here for anybody if they need anything. I've gone through a lot. I haven't gone through everything, but I'm always here to talk and listen for anybody who needs it. Peace out.